Well, welcome to another episode of Finding Gratitude. Now, I know it's been probably, I'm going to say maybe almost 2 weeks that I haven't uploaded. No, but I think it's been like 10 days. And it's mainly because I've been just so busy with work lately, but I've been thinking about it. I was kind of feeling bad that I didn't post anything last week, but just start of this week, I started to realize that, you know what, it's okay to go off track every now and then, but make sure that you can, I guess, pick it up and just get back on track again. And look, today, we've got a special guest. I guess he's special, I say, and he's a guest, so that's why he would be a special guest. But we got James. How you going, bro?
Am I that special? Am I that special in your mind?
No, but I didn't mean it like special in a bad way. Like, you know what I mean? Like you're
No,
my
of course.
special guest. You know what I mean?
No, of course. Well, dude, it's good to be here. I like this sort of setting. It's been a while since I've done podcasting stuff, which is weird because I'm ostensibly like a sound guy as my day-to-day job. So,
Wow.
thank you for giving me the opportunity to dive back in
No,
and
no problems, man. Like, thank you.
invade your show a little bit.
Well, like, I mean, it was from you that because I think we'd spoken about it a few weeks ago, and then you checked it out, and then you messaged and it's like, hey, can I be on an episode? And I was like, fucking oath you can. So let's do it now. A question that I kind of always start with or ask is if there's anything that's kind of like off topic.
Yeah, well, the first thing is that I forgot to close my door, so my cat's just sort of wandering around down there. But she's pretty quiet, so I'm happy to just sort of like leave her to do her thing, if that's good with you.
I mean, I'm good with that. So as long as you're happy and you're good, then that's
No,
that's
no, no.
pretty good.
She's chill. She's very, very nice. She's sort of she's like my companion when I'm working from home these days. She like when my desk is in stand-up mode, she'll like sit on my chair and she'll claw my ass while I'm on Zoom meetings, which is pretty cool.
Oh, really? Yeah.
And
As they do.
right
I've
now
seen
when I
that
have a very,
happen
very
to
important
a couple people.
podcast. Right.
But
Yeah, no. Cats are weird, man. Like I don't like cats that much. I'd say I don't like animals that much, but like she's my housemates. And I
Oh,
think
okay. Yeah,
having
I was about to say
having a
like
cat having a cat that you don't actually have to look after, that's just sort of like around, is like the optimum, I think. Um,
the
but yeah,
ultimate
no.
good thing or
Oh yeah, the like it's the best
okay.
position because you don't have to deal with the poop or anything. It's great.
Yeah, true.
You
I
just
thought it
get
was gonna
the
be
you just get
like
the
I
company.
don't like this cat.
But yeah, no. Off-topic stuff. Off-topic stuff. You've taken me by surprise there. Because I'm just trying to think now. You know when someone asks you how your week's going and your mind just goes blank immediately and you're like, oh God, do I
It's
actually
like
do
one of those
anything?
moments right now.
Yeah. Fully.
I don't know, like
c-
top of your head, like something that you think you don't want to talk about.
that I don't want to talk about. Oh, sorry. I thought you were talking about stuff that was off topic, like irrelevant. You're talking about like stuff we don't want to get into.
Sorry. Yeah. That's what I meant. That's what I meant by like. Okay, so like something that you do not want to be talking about.
I'm pretty open, man. Like
So
I
like
don't really
what's
mind.
yeah.
I think like anticipating discomfort is a good way to feel discomfort, you know? So I feel like if there is anything that we sort of start moving towards that I'm not vibing, we'll know it, but I don't think I'll know it in advance. And,
Yeah.
I feel pretty open. I feel
No,
pretty
because like
able to
there could
discuss
be
stuff with you.
something that it's happening in the background that that you don't want to get involved, like you don't want to talk about or anything like that. But anyways, like that's completely fine because like I always like to, I guess, open with like a question like that to just throw people off because if there is something that they don't want to talk about it, if there's something that they don't want to talk, then they're not gonna bring it up. You know what I mean? Like they're gonna be like,
Yeah.
oh no, nothing. But it just kind of makes you think, and it's just like, oh shit, is there actually something I don't want to talk about? Like, no,
That's the thing, right? Like I've always been such a huge open book. It's like a massive problem, I'd say. Like I don't think you come on a podcast that's about like the horrible things that have happened to you in your life unless you want everyone to know your inner soul, you
well,
know?
like, I mean, yeah, you don't know, right? Because like I don't know, you could go through pretty bad stuff, and it's like you end up on top at the end. So you kind of do want to share that part or like that story, or you do want to be, or like you do want to be open about stuff. But yeah, like if you're a very open guy, then that's pretty good. And I guess that's why you're kind of in this podcast anyway, because you're pretty much open and you want to, maybe you want to have like a light for you, or like, yeah, for you to say something, or there's something that you wanted to get off your chest or something like that. But so like, why do you reckon you came up to me and was like, hey, like put me on, coach?
Well, first off, I love attention. I'm a firm believer in receiving attention. But on a more serious note, I think Mings, you're just a fascinating guy. I think I've known you like what, 2.5 years at this point, and I think just like every time I learn something new about you, it's something that surprises me, but I'm like in a good way. I'm sort of like, ooh, you're doing this now.
Really?
You're doing this now, because I feel like, and I'm sorry for stereotyping or whatever. Your vibes are very like stoner gym bro, and that's great vibes. I love that about you.
Wait. So what are my vibes again?
Your vibes is like stoner gym bro, like
stoner gym bro. I didn't know that was a thing.
I don't know. It's a good vibe. It's a friendly vibe, and that's I think the first thing that struck out to me about you.
So like
very
two
friendly.
things that would be in my starter pack would be like weed and then
10-kilo weight
dumbbells,
and bag of weed,
like plates or like you know what I mean, weightlifting equipment.
Yeah, exactly.
Man.
I'm keen to hear what you think. Sorry, what the
have
starter
you seen
pack?
those starter packs? Yeah, and it's usually
no, fantastic.
What are the two things? Sorry to go off topic, but like, what are the two things you reckon would be for me? Like, obviously, okay, so weed. We'll have.
I think yours is a cap for sure.
Okay, yeah, and then
so a buff, a cap, and a red camera.
True. Fuck, I like that. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. What do you reckon? What do you reckon mine is?
I'm just thinking like, because when I first met you, you had blue hair, right? But I'm trying to like convey that into an image where it's not just because of the color, but I guess I don't know, but definitely maybe some like sound equipment. Do you know what I mean? Like the little thing that like soundies carry that have like all the sound equipment, like the little soundy bag.
Yeah, the little sound satchel.
Yeah, that.
There's about 500,000 pictures of me on Instagram in that exact getup, so yeah, it's fair enough.
Maybe wearing the vest that says like media or says press
the
or something.
press vest.
Yeah.
You can probably flash a picture of that up on screen, up in the top corner or whatever, so people know.
And maybe like some stylish pants or like, you know what I mean, like some sort of clothing that's kind of like not out there, but it's like, I guess, trendy or not trendy, but like, I mean, I don't want to say that word.
No, I get what you're talking about. I get what you're talking about. I think I very much so have like a. I don't think I intentionally got it, but I very much so have like a look. I think that my friends like to satirize.
Yeah.
I for my 20th birthday actually, the theme was dress up as me, and people could interpret that in whatever. Because like some of these friends I've had for like half of my life, so they've seen me go through all sorts of different like. Shit. Trends and faces and stuff. It was quite funny seeing all the different takes on it, because like people I knew from high school would be dressing in like little gamer boys, and people I knew in uni would sort of like have the round sunglasses and the that I always used to wear.
Yeah, true. Fuck, that's mad. Like so
no one put on yellow face though, which I was worried about.
Wait, what's yellow face?
Like blackface?
Yeah, I know.
But I'm Asian, so it'd be yellow face.
Oh no, but like, oh wow, like how do you get yellow face? Like, I would be putting myself like a lot of red, or like like not red, but make you more red, because obviously when you have a few drinks, I guess Asians do get a bit red. So
yeah, that's my
I'd
curse.
Be going
really.
towards more of that, but no, that's funny as man. Just dress as me for my 20th. Fuck. That would have been.
You should do that. You should throw a party of that, man. I'd be interested to see.
Yeah, everyone's gonna be stoner gym bros, bro. What do you? Thanks to.
You're gonna have so many gains.
So many gangs, just blazed gangs, man. Fuck, blazed punks.
And everyone's forgot to bring a lighter, so it's just like everyone with a joint just going around and like, can I get a light, bro? Can I get a light?
No, but for me, it's all about the vapes. Actually, yeah, like even like a vape, like a dry herb vape.
The vape is. Let me amend that. It's a joint between these two fingers and a vape between these two fingers, and you're sort of like you're holding them like Yu-Gi-Oh cards. Yeah.
I'm holding like Yu-Gi-Oh cards. Who wants to join? You want to join? Yeah, just flicking Yu-Gi-Oh cards of vape. Fuck, no, that's mad. But
Yeah.
going back to what you were saying, so like, yeah, like you see me as this smoker gym bro. I think that was the term you used. I can't remember.
Yeah, but I think that you have the sort of the mindset of someone who's been through a lot, and you have been through a lot. And I always find it interesting the way that people who've like been through so to sort of go off on a tangent, like in my mind, I classify all the hardship in life as like obligatory hardship and then non-obligatory hardship or like extra hardship, you know. And like obligatory hardship is stuff like breakups, you know, having friends pass away, you know, getting through university, getting fired from your job, like stuff that sort of most people will deal with at some point in their lives. And then there's like the non-obligatory stuff. And I categorize what you went through as sort of like the king of all non-obligatory hardship, you know. So I'm always fascinated to see like how does once a person gets through that, like how what is their outlook on that, and how does that change how they operate, you know. Like what's the biggest thing that's changed between pre-cancer Migs and post-cancer Migs? And I suppose when I found out you had this podcast, it's like, well, that's sort of that's exactly what I'm talking about, really. It's an analysis of the way in which this thing would have changed your outlooks and changed your life. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Try
100%.
to jump up.
No. That's fuck yeah, man, 100%. And I feel like me having a podcast like this is where like it's somewhere I can voice out on like how I feel and like I guess what I had to go through or like the struggles or like whatever I was dealing with mentally, going through all that stuff. But
And the other aspect of it is, of course, the fact that, like, I think as men, we have a lot of, like, not even intentional, not even, like, necessarily directly anyone's fault, just pressure to not talk about what it is that's going on in our lives and what we think about things, you know? So I think that any sort of forum that you can have that's designed to talk and designed to get into that stuff, you know, especially for men, I think is so important. So yeah, when I heard you had this, I was like, fuck yeah, let's do it. You know, if you'll have me, if you think that my various stories are worth sharing, then fuck yeah, let's do it.
yeah, man, for sure, man. I was actually quite happy that you were wanting to be on it because yeah, like I don't talk to many people about like that I have a podcast and whatnot. Like I don't even have social media for myself. Or I mean I did before, but then I've deactivated it. So I don't even share it publicly, or like I don't even share it on social media, so people don't know that I have this podcast. So having you and come up and be like, oh yeah, I'll come in. I was like, fuck yeah, of course you can come in for sure. Like, and like, I'm definitely interested in like other people's stories as well. And like, as the title of the podcast is called, like, we're all kind of like struggle through things, or we all go through different experiences in life. And at the end of the day, like, what helps us at the end is like finding gratitude in things, like even if it's the little things, or even in like the whole thing that is happening to you. And like to answer your first question, that which was like, what, like, how have I changed, or what has been the biggest impact for me, like pre-cancer and post-cancer. And it would just be, man, like being like so grateful now for like everything. Like sometimes I wake up and I'm just like, I can think back to those days where I was, because like with my cancer, I had a tumor inside my chest, and it was probably the size of my hand, of my wrist, and it was just getting bigger and bigger. So there was times in my life where like I couldn't sleep properly, because every time I lie down I just cough. I had to sleep like elevated, and even there's times where like I would walk like maybe 2 meters and I was puffed out. So like I couldn't walk, like the tumor was pushing against my lungs. So sometimes I wake up and I remember those days and I'm like, fuck, like I am so grateful that I can actually breathe normally. And you know what I mean? It's just small things like that that gets me grateful. So that's probably the biggest takeaway from like just dealing with it all, man. Like I wake up every day, or almost every day. Some days I still feel shit. Some days like I'm still normal, even though I've experienced through a lot. Like sometimes I wake up and I'm like, fuck, I'm so not ready for today. I'm just not on it. I'm so over it, and I feel kind of depressed in a way. But most of the time, like as soon as I start to think back on how life used to be for me and trying to compare it to how it is now, I'm just like, fuck, I am so blessed. And it just puts me back on track, and I'm just grateful to just for life,
For sure.
man. Like,
And on that
I guess
note,
though,
you For, oh, sorry. I think there's like a second or two of lag. So, sorry for cutting you off. Yeah, the way you describe like your experience of having the tumor and like the way that it affects you, like, do you feel like having that experience has changed the way that you perceive your own body and perceive like yourself as like a thing that is comprised of meat and organs? Because like I remember when I was a lot younger, sort of like not really getting that realization until I was lying in bed one night and sort of hearing my heartbeat and then sort of like beginning to visualize, oh, actually that's like a body. That's not just like an abstract idea. It's like an actual physical thing that's actually like gross and wet and has all these things inside of it, you know? Like the moment we sort of perceive that ourselves are these like quite fragile things. And I'm wondering if the cancer sort of affected your perception of your own body.
Yeah, good question, man. It definitely did. It definitely did. Because even like, yeah, me going to train sometimes and doing some like workouts, and I'm just like, especially like, let's say when I was getting chemo, I wasn't training, but pretty much as soon as I finished chemo, or because like I've gotten chemotherapy, I've gotten immunotherapy, and I've gotten radiotherapy, and then at the end I ended up getting a stem cell transplant. And it was like towards the end I will always go back and like train. And definitely, bro, like not being able to push myself as hard, like as soon as like, you know, I would have finished like a round of chemo and then doing and then going to training, it's like I can't literally push myself that much because it feels like I've received a lot towards the chest area and my lungs have been affected. So yeah, definitely, like I do feel my perception for my body, like I guess change, and I guess I can feel more of my body, or like I know, or like I just feel like I'm more intuitive when something's wrong, or when something just doesn't feel right within my body, and it's like my body telling me, it's like, hey, this is wrong, and I'm like, oh shit, maybe I should go get it checked out.
And is that usually paranoia, or is that usually like an actual problem you find?
I think it would be a bit of both. I'm most probably paranoia, I reckon. It's just that I'm scared because I'm like, oh, my body has received all this and this and this, like, you know, what's gonna happen if I really push myself? Like, what happens if I really push myself in a workout and I end up passing out? Like, is something gonna happen to me? Like, shit, I don't know.
Which is interesting because I feel like a lot of people who train and go to the gym, like healthy people, like they wouldn't really get that experience of having to watch themselves until they're like, you know, another 10 years older than you are, maybe older,
true.
you know.
Fuck.
Yeah. So to have like that experience of like the fragility of your own body.
Do what, sorry?
Well, yeah, well, I mean, I had a similar, I don't know if it's similar, but in terms of like, you know, your perception of your own body. So when my father passed away, he died of a heart condition that's potentially hereditary. So me and my brother and my sister all had to go and get every 2 years we have to go get a cardiogram, which is basically just like an ultrasound. Not pregnant, by the way, which is great to know. And sort of that first time, like the time between finding out that I had to get a cardiogram and actually getting it for the first time and finding out I was safe was just so like nerve-wracking, because every day you're hearing your heart. Because every day you're hearing your heart in your chest. And it's beating, and you don't have any perception about whether it is beating right or whether it is beating wrong, whether it's abnormal, whether it's normal. And most people don't have that, you know, that sense of themselves, at least most young people, you know. And I think that's something that like big hardship does to you, which is that it makes you have to consider things that most people don't consider till they're much, much later in life.
Yeah, that's true. Hey, like it's kind of shaping your perception of your own reality. So then you have more worries or like stresses that, like, you know, it could be having to be more health conscious because now you've experienced this. And yeah, and it's like something that not everyone goes through, right? Like obviously at a younger age, I guess. Because when I first got diagnosed, bro, I was 24 years old and I was just like still kind of like in my prime, I guess. I was just like, holy shit. And yeah, just learning to find gratitude even in that, and just be happy that I had already lived 24 years of my life, and I had already met X amount of people, and you know, I had beautiful experiences with my friends and my family. And because like, you know, like during that time, like at the back of my head, I always kind of thought that I could die at any time? Like, how do I know that, I might live the next 3 months? Like, I might die in 3 months. So, yeah, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. And that story hits so much harder for me because I am 24 right now, you
Oh
know.
shit!
Um,
No, don't be scared, man. Don't be scared. Be brave. You'll be alright, bro. You'll be alright.
no, it's all right. I figured. I mean, I thought you already knew that. Actually, to be honest, but no, it's a good thing to be aware of. You know, as cliche as the whole YOLO thing is, you know, it's like it actually can all be taken away from you at any moment. And I think a lot about like I've definitely had moments in my life like. Admittedly, probably when I was like younger, you know, like when I was like 18, 19, 20, when I would have days where I'd think, you know what, like if I died right now, I'd actually like feel pretty good about everything. Like it would suck, obviously, but like I feel like I would have like achieved a lot of things that I can be quite proud of, and I'd be like leaving behind like a lot of people who are in a pretty good position and that sort of thing. I think it has been a while since I thought that, in all honesty. But, you know, like, it'll happen again, and this is my cat, sorry.
It's not your cat though, man. It's your roommate's cat.
It's my housemate's cat.
Oh, your
Sorry, I
housemate's
know
cat.
she's probably
Sorry.
listening right now and yelling at the screen. But yeah, I've lost the thread a little bit, unfortunately.
Yeah, and the cat came in and kind of threw me off as well. I was like, "Fuck, what are we talking about again?" Not that I even was paying attention, but
Yeah, no, of course not, of course not.
Oh man. Yeah, wow, I literally completely forgot what you were talking about just then. But I know when we were texting, you did like we were asking, or I asked, like, is there something that you don't want to talk about? And you're like, oh, what do you usually talk about? And then you're like, oh wait, maybe I can talk about this thing, which was you dealing with loss. And then you did touch on it a little bit with your dad. And was there, like, what did you mean by having to deal with loss when you texted me that time?
Well, yeah, I something that took me quite a while to properly reckon with is that I have actually had to deal with an above average amount of loss in my life, and it's all been when I've been quite young. The most recent of which being October of last year, but you know the very first one being when I was 17, when I was going through high school exams. So my father, who was 61, passed away very, very suddenly from a condition that no one knew that he had. And it was literally just like, it was, you know, I came up one morning for breakfast and I said, hey, to him, and he said, hey, back. And I was tired, so I just went and I had my breakfast and I left. And then an hour later, he was dead. And my sister found his body. Which, when you are that young and that happens to you, it just destroys your entire world in a way that I can't really articulate. And it's been like a long process. I've been incredibly lucky throughout the whole ordeal. Like I have a mum who's fantastic. I have a brother and a sister who I can sort of connect with on these things. My family is quite complicated in its own right. I have like a lot of, you know, stepsisters, half sisters, a lot of a quite complicated situation, which was all quite exacerbated by him passing away. Like I found out after he passed away that I had family members that I didn't know about, and a lot of other things. So, and you know, I'm 17, you know, like I want to be caring about exams and girls and starting university and all this other stuff. And I actually ended up running away, not properly running away. It wasn't quite that dramatic, but it was a big, it was a big motivator for me to leave home quite young. So I moved out of home when I was probably like freshly 18, like within a week of turning 18. And since then, you know, I've gained some perspective on it, and through subsequent losses have sort of come to understand parts about the world that at the time I think a lot of my friends didn't quite, were thankfully not able to connect with. As I'm getting older, that's changing, and more people are sort of beginning to enter into this world of loss and pain, which sounds quite dramatic, but that is what it is. But the first thing that I learned about when this happened was that I had to sort of learn to exist in two worlds, because otherwise, when you are dealing with a huge amount of loss, you are generally the only one dealing with a huge amount of loss. Most people are still concerned about the little things. They're still concerned about girls learning to drive, their jobs, that sort of stuff. And it's really, really easy to fall into a pattern of resenting people because it's, you've gained this unholy perspective that makes you think, why do any of you care about any of this stuff? We're all dust. We're all going to fade away one day. But you can't give into that temptation. You sort of have to learn to say, okay, well, I can be dealing with these problems, and then when I need to, I can step out of that world and care about the mundane stuff again. And it's a hard thing to do, but I think it's so important in maintaining relationships and maintaining a good perspective on the rest of the world. Because the truth is, if we were all just sad about things 100% of the time, then no one would get anything done. We'd never find time to record podcasts. So I guess my question to you is, while you were battling cancer, how did your relationships with other people change? Did you find that you ran out of patience for stuff that wasn't as big of a deal as what you were dealing with?
It's funny. I was gonna ask you a few questions, and now you've thrown me off by asking me a question. Shit, man, it's my
Sorry.
podcast, all right? I'm meant to be asking you the questions, bro. What are you doing? No, bro. Like, to be honest, at the beginning, I just pushed people away. Hey, because every time. Because obviously at the beginning I was in hospital. I was hospitalized, I think, for a month after I got diagnosed, because pretty much I got started on chemo straight away. And the first the 1 or 2 months, I think I was pushing people away, because every time I would think about my situation, all I could think about was me dying and then making everyone upset. Especially my mom. That's the number one person I can always think of when I think about this. I could just picture my mom crying, it's my funeral and my mom's crying, and it's kind of oh no, I've upset you, don't be upset. And then I'll come back to reality and I'm like, fuck, I don't want to hurt people, so if I stop talking to them, this was my mentality, right? So it was if I stop talking to everyone now, then they'll forget about me, so when I die, then no one's gonna be upset. So that's how I felt, and that's how I kind of have been the last couple years, man. And it's been 6 years since I first diagnosed, but I'm slowly through time, I'm starting to come out of that. Most of the time I don't reply to people, bro. I know sometimes you've messaged me and it's been weeks before I reply, and it's kind of I'm still battling that. And I see kind of a holistic counselor now, every 2 weeks, and we kind of dive deep into guided meditation, and she takes me to different places. And even today I saw her, and then we went into inner child work. And the stuff that I saw when I was a child, it was the same thing that made me feel like that, where I was scared, I was lonely, and I was pushing people away because I don't know, I just couldn't find love, or I felt like I was in a place where I wasn't loved just that one time. But it's the same thing when I first got cancer, and then I started to push people away. And I guess when you said patience, I think, or with people and stuff like that, something that made me that I realized, I guess, from those experiences, was that nothing really matters, man. It's we can be feeling a certain way, or some person can make us feel a specific way right now, but in a day or 2 or 3 days, you're kind of going to get over it, and it's going to be oh yeah, that was the past, and that's not how I feel now.
And the trick, once you realize that nothing really matters, is to not let that turn you into an asshole. Because you can come to that logical conclusion of, nothing matters, so it doesn't matter if I'm a nice person. It doesn't matter if I'm kind to people. It doesn't matter if I create things, do creative work. But then you sort of have to flip your brain a little bit and say, well, nothing matters, so I have to decide what matters, and I have to create things that matter to me, podcasts, or even just connections with people. You can't let the fact that that everything is meaningless stop you from acting as if it is. It's like a mental trick you have to play with yourself, I think.
Yeah, that's true, man. 100% true, because if you're always thinking that nothing matters, then you wouldn't even be wanting to get out of bed, kind of thing. You'd be you could take it, the one extreme where you can end up taking your life, because if nothing really matters, then what's the point of living? But it's nothing really matters in a way that you shouldn't take too much seriously. or like yeah, to take too many things seriously. But see, like I started to learn about that stuff like that was when I first started to take psychedelics, and that was maybe a year or two before I actually got diagnosed. Um, like I reckon if I hadn't taken shrooms or psilocybin, magic mushrooms, um, I reckon my experience through cancer would have been different, man. Like I would have not been able to be grateful because I probably would have not been able to, man. Like I just couldn't find it within me to be like, hold on, like I still have, lived X amount of like 24 years of my life, met all this stuff. Like let's just be grateful about it. But yeah, like I think it was with my experience with psychedelics that made me realize that holy shit, like literally what we see and what we perceive as real is essentially 1% of what's actually out there. And like taking psychedelics made me open my eyes. Is like fuck, there's this all this room of possibilities. Like there's all these energies in this universe that we can't see, but are being transmitting. Like every time we speak, we're like emitting an energy, you know what I mean? Every time we think, it's like there's been an energy produced. So it's like fuck, like yeah, so when I started to see things like that through psychedelics, it made me also realize like fuck, maybe nothing really matters. And then it made me more connected with myself and made me realize that we were all connected. So then I started to see everyone as one. So like even when I talk to you, I always like, or like to anyone, I'm always like, this is just another person, or this is just another human that is living like this reality, but at the end of the day we are both the same. Like I feel like we are all connected and that we are all coming from one divine power, which is just source. And like for some that could be God, for some that could be the universe, it could be anything, you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course, of course. I don't. I think that outlook is honestly fantastic, and I think it's a really important one. That I think like there's elements of I think a lot of people think that they don't believe that, but like there's still elements of whatever it is they believe that is still true and fits in with what it is you're saying. So, absolutely, and for myself as well. But I think for myself, what I've always ended up like relying on was more grounded mindsets and grounded philosophy. That like that's not so much. An appeal, not an appeal, but not so much like a recognition of like a higher power or like a higher calling, but more like an understanding that like we are here in the world that may or may not exist, but we still have to, we have to work with what we have, even if what we have is shitty, and to use your example, it's like no, to not even use your example, to go off on something completely different. Like I've less. I don't picture like humanity or the universe as like a one thing. I picture it more as like a petri dish. Like all of us are tiny little pieces of bacteria on a petri dish that just are always bumping around and interacting and fighting and fusing and doing all these things that on a micro level are chaos. And when we're living through our lives, it feels so chaotic and so crazy. But on a macro level, if I'm the scientist looking into the petri dish, that's harmony, like that is a bunch of singular things that are interacting in a chaotic way. But if you take a step back, that is the way that things are meant to be. Things are meant to be messy. Things are meant to be like smashing against each other. So you could say that is all of us being one, yeah.
Yeah, because well, like if you keep zooming back out, and then like if you zoom far enough, there's just one thing there, you know what I mean? It's like we're all connected to that just one thing. But I like 100% agree with that idea that like yeah, when like in a macro level it can be seen as chaos, but if you step back and like yeah, you can kind of see that it's all working perfectly, like in harmony, like you said. And I think it's good to sorry, I was just gonna say, and I think it's good for us to be able to step back, and then we can become self-aware, and then that can be applied into any situation. Like let's say if you are in front of confrontation and then you get angry and then you start to raise your voice, and then if you're self-aware enough, you can step back from that and then be like, wait, hold on, why am I being like this? And then you start questioning, oh, okay, I'm being like this because this person is doing this for me. And then once you're self-aware, then you can have judgment, or like not even judgment, just knowledge to know how to act next time. Because like most of the time it's how we react to things that it's going to impact us the most.
Yeah, fully. Like that self-awareness is so important, but then at the same time it can also be like a killer because you're so aware of like what's happening to you right now that you sort of like you're aware of like you become too aware of when you fuck something up and you start punishing yourself for it. Like you know, if something bad happens to you and you take comfort in something that you know is unhealthy, whatever that means. And then your self awareness starts yelling at you, saying, "No, idiot! You're not meant to do that. You're meant to do something that's an approved way of dealing with it." So, and I think that that's something that psychedelics are fantastic for, as far as I understand, which is that like removing an element of that self consciousness, and like allowing yourself to just be, like allowing yourself to do what you're doing without that judgment, without the little voice. And obviously, you can get quite paranoid under psychedelics, which is why it's a tool. It's not like a be all end all. You know, you still have to sort of be in a good state of mind to do anything like that.
Yeah, 100%. Like the set and setting when you're taking psychedelics is definitely important. Like the dosaging, and if you can have someone there to like sit with you and help you out. There's actually a course nowadays. It's called psychedelic assisted therapy, where like psychiatrists, psychologists, counselors, social workers can apply for this course, and within maybe a year or 2 years, once psilocybin and MDMA goes from Schedule 9 to Schedule 8, which means Schedule 9 being a prohibited substance to a controlled substance, then these counselors, psychiatrists, psychologists can help people and deal with whatever they're going through with psychedelics, because they can go down into like such an emotional level where they can express how they feel, and then they can go back to that place that's making them feel that way, and then once they can be like pretty much just show forgiveness, man. And like my friend said this in a quote when we were in Queensland 2 weeks ago. He's like, through forgiveness, we can turn pain into love. And most of the time, like, you know, we have these stresses, or we've got this anxiety or whatever it may be. It's because like we're like so harsh on ourselves. Like we are like our worst critics. So if we can go back to that point in time where it made us feel like that the first time, and we can be present with our younger self and be like, it's okay, like come here, let me give you a hug, like whatever you're feeling, it's okay, I'm here with you, and I love you, and kind of have that relationship, and then you can come back to like like normal life and be like, wow, like that was so powerful, because now I don't hold that grudge, man, or because I don't have those same beliefs anymore, because you know I did feel this pain back then. That's what's making me act like this now. But now that I've shown love to it, I'm free now, and I'm happier. So yeah, and I feel like psychedelics, like you said, is the tools, man. They're 100% tools that can help us better our lives, and in turn, just be happy, man. Like, because once we're happy, like it's the best, bro. Like we are so grateful with life, and I don't know, like I love being just happy, and I guess that's why sometimes as well I love making other people happy. Like even with work, bro. Like when I go out and do jobs and whatnot, like sometimes I don't really care about the money that, you know, they're paying me. I just want to make people happy. And that's why I go and show up and like do the work for them. Because at the end of the day, I'm like helping a business. Like I'm helping a client. I'm helping a brand. I'm helping someone. Like I'm helping a cause to raise awareness or whatever. But at the end of the day, like I'm just, you know, helping people and just making them happy, man. The question though that I wanted to ask was, obviously you experiencing death when you're 17 years old. When was it when you weren't in like a dark place anymore, and you know you started to like be coming back to yourself, I guess, in a sense, like coming back to who you were before?
I don't think that it's such an easy thing to put a label on, like, oh, it was the 17th of February, you know, because I think that all of this stuff comes in waves, you know. Um, and I think that like on the day that Dad passed away, you know, I was in the kitchen in the room next to his body, and I was making jokes with the police officers because that's just my personality, and I couldn't turn that off, you know. Um, but then, you know, then you have horrible days where it all just sort of fades away, and all you want to do is just like sit in the hurt and feel sad, and you know what you can do to feel sad, and you're not doing the thing. So I think that knowing, understanding that I could be in a place where I would be feeling bad and not want to stop feeling bad, that was a new emotion for me. Um, that was a new mindset. That's not something I'd ever really experienced before. And I think that in that sense, understanding like the depths of where my mind can go, I don't think I've ever been the same, you know. I think that I think that once you learn that about yourself, and once you learn how you react when the worst thing in the world happens, it sort of it changes your brain in a way. Even if your mannerisms, even if your personality stays the same. I do think though that like I throughout that period, that whole period, I was really, really lucky to have a lot of great support and a lot of people who facilitated me in giving me what I needed, whether that was just like a day off where I didn't have to think about anything, or, a little bit of slack at work, or, a little bit of extra attention at school, that sort of thing. And that sort of allowed me to deal with that in a way that I didn't feel like that I required therapy, which is super, super rare, I would say. And whether that was the right choice or not, I think remains to be seen. But and that's not at all to disparage people who do need therapy. I think it's normal to need therapy. I probably had a pretty mine's quite a rare case, I think. And things that have happened to me since then, in the last, however many years it's been since then, like 8, 9 years, have made me want to seek therapy. But yeah, I think as far as the passing away of my father, I think that I'm very lucky in the fact that it gave me a lot of wisdom without leaving a lot of trauma and changing me too much, I think. And a question I have for you, which is sort of related to what you were talking before about psychedelics, is that when you meet other cancer survivors, I don't know whether you do meet other cancer survivors or not, who have gone through what you go through without using psychedelics or doing quite different therapies and different techniques to deal with it. How do you feel about that? Do you feel like these people are missing out on an element that you found was very, very useful to you?
Psychedelics in general, like if we were to talk about like trips like psilocybin or LSD or the methyltryptamine like DMT or like ayahuasca, with those substances, with other cancers. Look, to be honest, I have spoken to maybe 2 or 3. I mean, when I was in hospital, I would talk to more because I would see them when I was getting treatment. But post, like recently, I have, and I really think they do, man. I don't know if they're like, yeah, no, like I definitely would be like the missing out on something. Yeah, definitely, man, definitely, because I feel like a lot of people, or even young people, or whoever they may be, man, they could be older as well. When they get, presented with this situation or this thing, or this opportunity, where it's like, hey, you got cancer. The first thing, or not the first thing, but one of the things that they always go back to is dying, and dying is not something it's that we talk about it as much. Like every time someone brings it up, no one says anything, or it's just a topic that's not get talked about. So like if someone's is or does get told that they've got cancer, one of the first thoughts are going to be like, fuck, I'm going to die. And then having that thought that you're going to die soon, and it's like you haven't not having accepted death for what it is. Like as soon as we're born, we're gonna die. Like we need to accept it. Like like death is seen like such a bad thing, but for me it's seen like such a beautiful thing. Like fuck. So I feel like when people that do take psychedelics, and if they do take a number amounts of psychedelics at different times, or it could be at one given time, like three, like hero doses, like 3 to 5 grams of psilocybin, or even like 2, 3 tabs, or they smoke DMT, and they experience ego death, they learn something from themselves. They learn that death is just part of life, and they accept death for what it is. So then they just get happier, and I think that's what happened to me. Like I was okay to die, like in a sense, and it's funny because before I got cancer, so I got cancer in 2016, and before that, so I think from July 2015 to the end of 2015, I had a daily mantra, which was today's a good day to die. And like the way that I was saying that every single day wasn't in a way that I want to die. It was more like I want to live every day as if it's my. So I don't want to have any regrets. And then fucking January 2016 came along, and it's like, hey, like you've been saying this thing, like, guess what? You got cancer now, and yeah, you might die. And I was like, holy shit. But like, yeah, experiencing with psychedelics and experiencing ego death definitely helped me have a different experience with cancer in itself. I was just like at the beginning, oh, I'm scared of dying. Like I don't want to die. Like life's too good. And then I went back to this, these beautiful experiences that I had on psychedelics, and I'm like, hey, you know what? Like this is not it. Like I strongly believe like this life's not it. Like obviously our consciousness like will die or like will cease to exist when we're to pass away, but who knows what's the afterlife like does obviously our energy will continue on, but it gets converted from this physical body to I have no idea what, because no one has really gone there and come back. So yeah, I would say that they're missing out in a wave where they haven't been able to accept life for what it is, and they haven't been able to accept death for what it is. But in actually saying this, so I have a mate now who's Benji. Um, Crazy how we met, but my mate was playing golf and this dude was playing golf in front of him. They were both playing by themselves, so my mate's like, oh, let's play together. They play together. At the end of the day, he's like, oh, I came to golf because I haven't been feeling very well. I just went to the doctor and I've got Hodgkin's lymphoma or non-Hodgkin's or B-cell lymphoma. I can't remember which specific one he's got, but it was very similar to what I had. I had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and this kid was 24 as well, and I was like, fuck, like, and then my mate was like, hey, is it all right if you go talk to him? So we did we did catch up, and and then last time I saw him, he he told us that the second round that he went for chemo, his body had a bad reaction to it. It was 3 a.m. He was passed out. He was unconscious. His parents were at home with him. They couldn't wake him up, and they're like fucking scared shitless. They put him in the car. They drove to the hospital, driving like 150 hospital. Like, obviously, like they don't know if this kid's alive or not, so they take him to the hospital. And he, like, the way that he explains the experience now, it's like he thinks or he feels like he's experienced death, and now he is happier with life now, and you can see it now. Yeah, he's going through chemotherapy. Yeah, he's got all these battles and all these challenges in his life right now, but he just looks happier because he's experienced that experience, and it's like, I'm okay. Like, like whatever happens is gonna happen. If I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die. But at least I'm happy, and like I'm not angry at myself or I'm not blaming me for getting cancer, or I'm not blaming whoever for having cancer. He just found gratitude, and I feel like, yeah, like those near-death experience definitely help like cancer patients, I guess. So, and then psychedelics give you those because your ego is kind of dying, or you know what I mean. You do have that sense of dying, like, yeah, your whole reality is gone, and you might go somewhere else. Psychedelic you take, like, you can take ayahuasca and you can trip for fucking hours, man. You can take iboga and you trip for like 3 days, or you can smoke DMT and you trip for like 10 minutes, but all those trips are so intense that they're taking you somewhere. I definitely do feel like they're missing out in a way, unless they've actually had near-death experience where they get to appreciate life, I guess, more. Because I guess that's what I got from like dealing with cancer, and then being in remission, like death experience. So it makes me appreciate life more now.
For sure, for sure. And do you feel, have you ever met like a cancer survivor whose outlook on it you've disagreed with? Like who's taken something away that you think is like the opposite of what you've taken away from it, or anything like that?
I've met like older people, like, and I say over 50s, I guess, closer to 60s or even over 60s, where yeah, they've kind of like, they've survived through it. They're in remission, but they've given up already, like with hope or within themselves. So even though they might not be sick, they just kind of, I guess they just don't care like anymore, or like they just don't care as much anymore. And it's just not a good outlook to have. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I talked about like, I don't care about things, or I don't care much about stuff. Like, I remember like before I got cancer, like I would always be so conscious about where I spend my money. And then after I got cancer, I had money and I was like, fuck it, let's buy a red camera. It's 20K. Yeah, why not? And where before I would have been like, wait, like I'm not ready to just go spend 20 grand on a camera. Then that, like, I don't even know if I'm going to use this much, because I've only just started doing video stuff for 12 months. But because I had gone through cancer, I was just like, fuck it. Like I could die tomorrow. So might as well just do it now. Like while I have the money. But yeah, I guess that's the only thing. Like they've kind of given up on life in a sense, even though that they're in remission. But they're like, oh, I might get it again any day now. And, what am I going to do now? My body's already 60 years old. I'm too old to deal with all this cancer treatment anymore. And yeah, like in that sense, I guess. Like the much older people.
Yeah, absolutely. And to circle back to what you're talking about as far as money goes, it's sort of it's interesting the way that my experiences have affected my perception of money as well, because and this is actually well similar but different in a way, because I'll explain, but this is actually something I don't tell a lot of people. But essentially, when my dad died and I was getting to the age that I had to start going to university, and I realized that media was what I wanted to do and what I wanted as a career. Part of the reason why I felt comfortable doing that and why I felt comfortable moving out of home is because I knew that pretty soon I was going to be receiving an amount of inheritance, that if I crashed and burned, and if media wasn't the right thing and I had to spend, I had to reskill, or I couldn't work, that I would have some financial security that I could lean on, which I think I definitely was like embarrassed about for a really, really long period of time. And it's actually funny because I didn't actually end up receiving that for like another year or two after he died. So I actually ended up moving out of home and then having to like work decently hard in order to, make rent and stuff. That's a whole other story. But I definitely do think that the way that my thinking turned around in that eventually was, and it was also the beginning of where I started to draw the distinction between obligatory sadness and the extra sadness, the non-obligatory sadness, which is when I confessed to my mum that I was feeling quite guilty about the fact that I had this privilege that a lot of other people didn't have, and she said, well, a lot of your friends, when they get older, they're going to have their parents die, and then they'll get amounts of money that they'll then spend on house deposits and stuff. So really all it is you're just getting something a little bit earlier than other people, and you're choosing to spend it differently to them. Which really, really helps. And because of I had that at the time, and I was able to take risks, like get into media, which is a very, very slow starting career, freelancing, which is an even more dangerous career. I sort of owe a huge amount of my life and my experience and my personality to the fact that my father died and put me in that position. Which is a very, very strange and weird thing to think about. But I suppose also, to compare to your experience, like, cancer probably had a huge impact on your outlook. It definitely changed, I think, the way that you interact with other people, and that's why you and I are friends. So, we owe a lot to the horrible, horrible things that happened to us.
Yeah. And like, it's like our experiences in the past is what makes us who we are now. Like, you know what I mean? Even though that we both had to go through, like, I guess, obstacles or just experiences that most people don't experience at such an early age, right? Like, like us, or like, sorry, not us, but, like a child having to lose one of their parents, like it usually happens when they're much older, you know what I mean? Like that's the normal, or like that's not normal, but like the most typical way, like just at that age when they're much older. And I guess like younger people don't really get that sick or they get that ill. It usually happens when they're much older. So I guess we have gained a lot of perspective in life just at an early age, which kind of makes us similar. And I guess, yeah, like you're right, like that's why we would have been attracting to each other, because we have like those similar views, because we kind of had similar experiences.
Do you feel like you'd get along with the Miguel that never went through cancer? Like parallel universe? There's you, he just never had cancer. Like, do you feel like you guys would get along?
Yeah, so it definitely, as long as that old Miguel did go through the psychedelics that I did experience, 100%. So even if it was like at the end of 2015, because 2016 January is when I first got diagnosed. So yeah, like as long as I had gone through the psychedelics and everything, 100%. Because the person I became, man, from taking numerous amounts of psychedelics, and like I didn't trip with my friends. Most of the time I was in my room, or I would go out to nature and have like 3 to 5 grams of shrooms. I remember once I took like 7 grams of shrooms and I tripped the fuck out. I could completely die. Like like I had to pass out because my mind was fucking going way too many different places. So I passed out for like 11 hours and I felt like I completely died and shit. But it's through those experiences I feel like it made me who I am now. So maybe going through cancer did do a little, like maybe it was 50-50, bro. Maybe 50% was psychedelics and 50% was going through cancer. Or it might even be 60-40, where 60 is the psychedelics, man. I feel like psychedelics definitely shaped who I am today.
Okay, that's fascinating.
But yeah, man, we never really like touch base on like how we met or like who you are and like what do you do, bro. So all we know is your name, right? So
Yeah, of course. Well, I'm James Tran. I work as a media producer here in Melbourne. I do a lot of things. My probably the one I'm most well known for is I'm a soundie. So I work on people's short films and podcasts and things like that. I'm the guy who holds the mic. And I met Miguel because you and I are both in the media world, and we met when I came up to Sydney to do some events work. And I remember one of the very first conversations you and I actually had was about dad and my experiences, because I'm in the process of processing how I feel about my father, and by extension Vietnam and my family. You know, Vietnam, that's my background, through a documentary. And I remember one of the first conversations you and I ever had, I said, oh, I've been working on this thing, do you want to see it? And you just lit up as soon as you saw the as soon as you saw the trailer. Like you loved it, which was really, really validating for me, because it's a story that I took a very, very long time to realize was interesting to people who weren't part of my family. And for context, the story's a lot bigger than just my father passing away. It has a lot more to do with the Vietnam War, and the ways that trauma can reflect, war trauma specifically, the way that it can reflect on people who weren't even alive for the war. And also outlooks on being a westernized Asian person and what that means, and how we as a generation feel about that. But yeah, no, it was so great to just get that validation from someone like yourself, who, like, you know, knows about media, has had a lot of interesting experiences. So I'm assuming at this point not a lot of like not a lot of stuff is not a lot of stuff necessarily sticks out to you, probably because of your experiences. That's an assumption. So yeah, no, and because you were someone who engaged with me in that way, that's sort of why I've always wanted to, like, that's why I've been a little bit fascinated by you. And so far I haven't been quite let down by that. So
no, that's good to know, man. I still remember the it was when you came down for Clipped and you were working out of the studio that we had then, just on Burke Street, and we were sitting on the blue couches outside of the studio. And yeah, like I remember you showing me the trailer, and I was like, fuck, this is mad. I just love people that create things and that put themselves out there and that actually put on the work, because I meet so many people, man, and you probably meet so many people like this as well, where they'll be like, oh yeah, I got this idea, like I want to do this and I want to do that and that, and I'm like, cool, yeah, let's get to it, let's do it. And then speak to them like in a month and like, so how much have you done? It's like, oh, nothing. And it's just like, fuck, like really, like you geared up so much, but then you don't actually back up, you know, all your talk. Like a lot of people just talk the talk, bro, but no one's willing to put in the work, no one's willing to walk the walk. But like me seeing the trailer, I'm like, fuck, you've actually, you know, gone out and spent I don't know how many hours already, because I think you were telling me like you've traveled to the States to get some footage, and you were traveling, I don't know if it was your brother or your cousin or like I don't know who it was, but I was like, fuck, you're actually putting in the work, man. Keep fucking going, bro. Like just, yeah, that's why I was like, fuck yeah, keep going. And it's obviously close to your heart, like you're talking about family and then like your dad and then your past and like, you know, things that happened and shit like that. So I was like, fuck yeah, like just keep going on it, actually. And just touching on that, I did have a question, but it's not really a question, it was just something that I did want to bring up in this podcast, was because it keeps coming in my mind, because and it is like how many hours in the day are we spending, no, how many hours in the day are you spending creating rather than consuming, right? Because most of the time we're just in like on social media, right? Like most of the time, all we're doing is just consuming, and like we're all natural creators, bro. Like yeah, like me and you, we might be in this media space where we get to create content. Where obviously you're more with sound and sound, like because you're a soundy, but that's not who you really are. You know what I mean? Like you're still creating this like documentary, so you can still create a video piece, or you know what I mean, like some sort of media stuff. So we are all creators though, and yeah. So the question goes to you, I guess. Like, how many hours for yourself do you reckon you spend consume or like creating rather than consuming?
It would honestly be so hard to put like a number on it, because the way that I create is so like eclectic. Like I'm the sort of person who like I'll not. So my main artistic outlet is photography. I'm a portrait photographer, and you know I have all sorts of different really nice lenses, really nice Russian ones I've been getting into recently. But I'm so particular about what I like with photography that like if I don't have uh because I like people. I like interesting places and interesting people, and I like finding people who like have interesting stories to tell and sort of like taking their pictures as part of telling that story. Because that's such a rare thing, I'll sometimes go a week without touching my camera, you know? Just because like for me, taking that and going for a walk and just trying to take pictures of flowers and stuff and trying to force that creativity. And even like I should be doing that because that is a fantastic exercise. Like I really have trouble motivating myself to do that. So it's like to answer your question, it's probably like I'll take 2-3 days not doing it, and then I'll have a whole day doing the thing that I want to do, the creative thing that I want to do, and then I'll take another break, and then I'll do a whole day of it, you know. And then you know, it's not to say that I'm not doing anything fun at all in the rest of my life. Like you know, I'm blessed to be able to do photography as one of the many things I do as a media producer, and I get a lot of satisfaction through that. And then also, you know, just being able to, you probably hear that, sorry. And then just, you know, getting satisfaction in, you know, editing little pieces, editing promotional material for editing promotional material for small events and stuff who we've been lucky enough to help out as promotional partners. Like that stuff is how I flex my creativity at work. And I think actually now that I'm thinking about it, like so much of my creativity is infused with the idea of work. It's probably why I was so drawn to that outfit, which maybe popped up on the screen earlier, which is it's basically like a parody of the press vests that war correspondents will wear, and I wear that to festivals and things, and I take pictures of people, because in my mind, like creating is like requires work, and it requires like sacrifice and time, and if I'm creating without putting in sacrifice and time, then I don't feel like I'm doing it properly, if that makes sense. Like for me, wearing that, it makes me feel like I'm like putting hard work into it. It's not just like a fun thing I'm doing because I'm enjoying it. It's like, no, I'm here to actually make a product. I'm here to actually put effort into, you know. So yeah, I'm not sure if that quite totally makes sense, because it's something I'm still sort of figuring out in my own mind. But that's how I create, I think.
Yeah, cool. Is there any other stuff that you reckon you do to create? Like, do you write stuff down? Do you write down, like, I don't know, do you have a journal that you write? Do you like to write? Do you like to, yeah, we talked about photography. I'm guessing, you know, social media stuff. Do you post as much? Like, do you have Twitter? Do you, yeah, like, is there other avenues that you see yourself creating, or any other forms?
I don't often write, but very occasionally I'll feel the need to pair a photo with a written piece that I can spend generally like quite a lot of time on. And it's usually sort of like a journalistic type. So I don't write journals, but I write in journal style when I'm trying to create like a piece. So the best example I can think of is I wrote up I was inspired by a couple of shorts that Adam Elliott, who's the guy who made Harvey Crumpet and Mary and Max, he made up these little animations which are basically just him telling stories of little stories from his childhood about, you know, times that he was injured and school experiences and relatives who've since passed away. And I got inspired by that, and I started writing this memoir style piece about this old wooden deck we used to have in the house where we grew up, and the ways that it changed and shifted over the years, and basically made the deck, this piece of the house, the main character of the story. And it ended up being quite a long piece, and it ended in this quite absurd and bizarre way, because that's just my life. That's just like a real thing that happened to me. And I felt a huge amount of satisfaction from that. Like I go back and I read it every now and then, and I sort of think a lot about how I could apply that to the future. And as a matter of fact, the documentary, I'd say, is a way for me to do that in a more consistent way. It's an opportunity for me to reflect on these things in the way that I like to reflect on them, which is with a lot of like slow, considered words and eloquence and time, and drawing interesting conclusions between things that are quite distant. I'm one of the most obnoxious thinkers on the planet because I'm always trying to intellectualize everything, you know, like I'm always trying to draw little parallels between things that aren't necessarily aren't necessarily linked. But I think that it's just fascinating to sort of like to look at things from different angles and try to construct those angles together through writing. So yeah, I'd say that while I don't write often, when I do write, I'd say it's generally like something that I'm incredibly proud of and incredibly like eager to share with people.
No, man. Fuck yeah. Now, like, we've been going for probably just over an hour or just about to hit an hour. So I'm kind of just conscious on the time. And is there any final thoughts, or is there something that you're thinking you want to, speak about before we wrap up and we go?
I think just in general, I think that what you're doing is a fantastic thing. And I hope that you continue to find new ways to reflect on your experiences that are like valuable to others, and also seek out other people who can like share what they're doing in this context. Because I think, everyone walks around with a monologue in their head that we want other people to hear. We're just embarrassed to share it with people. And I think that because I think you're the kind of guy who can like disarm people a little bit and relate to people and be funny with, I think that you might have an easier time drawing out those stories in a way that other people, that in a way that someone who is a little bit more uptight and a little bit more formal might not be able to. So, I hope you keep using what you got to do interesting and fun and important things, my friend.
Thanks, man. So you reckon this stoner gym bro can kind of like ease into people so they can have a more open conversation?
I mean, hey, look, Joe Rogan's popular for a reason, man.
Oh man, but he was a black belt, man. Or he is a black belt. Just because he smokes weed every now and then.
You're gonna have to become a black belt, man. That's all I can say.
I mean, I kind of already do CrossFit, all right. So I'm just gonna stick to that. It's funny though, cause like just touching on what you just said. I'm reading this book, The Something to Be This Like, A Reason to Be This Like. I can't remember the name of the book, but anyway, like the guy talks about how he would always think about himself because he's like 140 or 150, like centimeters, so he's like really, really short, and like he used to compare himself to like taller people, and his friend one day goes up to him, he's like, "Oh, why are you so sad?" And he's like, "Oh, because I'm so short." And this is while he was in psychology school, and he's like, "Bro, but think about it, like if someone in your position, or if you were to be tall, like imagine how you would be with patients, when you're treating them, because you're obviously like a psychologist. They might feel more reserved because you're so tall and you seem like overpowering, but because you're like small and short, they're more open and they'll be more willing to like share their stories with you." And then ever since then, he was like, "Fuck, you're right. Like, you know what? Like, yeah, to me, before I used to think like, fuck, because of my height, I feel bad about myself." But it made him realize that, hey, if I just change my perception a little bit, I can feel proud and happy of who I am. And then I don't know, I just thought about that because you mentioned how I'm like, yeah, you know, some people might feel more comfortable talking to me, and like I might be able to open them up and might be able to make them share their stories even more, just because of the type of person that I am. And I reckon I am pretty chilled, but yeah, that's probably because I am most of the time high, but but I'm not, man. I'm not like when I have work, I don't smoke, but I am a medicinal cannabis patient, so it's all legal for me, man.
Yeah, no, good shit, man. I love it.
Thanks, bro. Thanks so much, man. Thanks for your kind words, though, even through like the whole thing. Thanks for having questions for me and asking questions, because there's usually like just conversations. No one really asks me questions. I mean, they do, but it's not like, you know, questions that I have to think about. Like, and you definitely brought out questions that I had to, you know, think about. So, bro, and it was such a good time having you on. So hopefully, this won't be the last time, and we get to explore more about you and your life and your experiences. And man, like all we're doing is really like talking about what we've gone through, because there might be someone out there that listens to this podcast or that watches this podcast, and it's kind of going through, you know, the shit that we've gone through, and they can resonate, and we can help them at the end of the day, man. Because at the end of the day, that's all I want to do, bro. Like, I just love helping people, and if I can help them in this way, because I'm talking about my experiences, and I have guests like you that get to talk about their experiences, and it helps someone, then we've done the work, bro. Like, we've done our job. Our job's done. We can tick the box, and we can go to sleep and sleep well.
Of course, and I appreciate that you appreciate the way that I sort of try to intellectualize everything and try to ask big dumb questions. Cause definitely not everyone.
Everything. So you're saying I'm stupid? Is that what you're saying?
No, but I mean, like, I think that I have a habit of like, and last anecdote before I go, I promise, because I'm conscious of your time, but like I remember once when I was interviewing a guy who he runs a charity that helps veterans deal with PTSD by working with horses. And he was talking about like the way that the horses, a lot of them, like they used their former work horses, and I said to him like, oh, do you feel like there's a kinship between these people who used to be soldiers and these horses that used to be work horses? Because it's like they're both beings that have like had to deal with just like not having any agency in their lives. And he just sort of gave me this weird look, being like, maybe, I don't know. And I was like, all right, no, that's
Don't worry about it.
Ignore me. Don't worry about it, bro. Whereas I feel like that's me being like the all high and mighty intellectual bullshit. Whereas I feel like you'd be able to like have that conversation in a much more like disarming and a much more natural way. So I love what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing, my friend. I'm glad we had a chance to chat like this.
Fuck yeah. All right, man. I'll catch you soon. See you guys.
All right.
Bye.
Take care. Say goodbye, Alice. All right.